All right, let's talk. As a good friend would say, let's have a good old fashioned yarn, boys. uh, I always kind of start these the same way, don't I? Yeah. So, I've been planning this week um, to kind of circle back a bit with the lectures, um, with the archetypes. So, I really, really want to continue with the magician, um, but just learning more, and reading more. Um, I feel pretty irresponsible, almost, to just deliver my understanding of this knowledge in a way that's kind of not in order. Um, but I'm just, I'm learning, like the best, trying to learn trying to learn the best way to deliver it so it all kind of like links together, right? um, but I'm just kind of uh, not exactly um, not exactly winging it, you know because I have a basis of like the exact kind of topics I want to go into and how deep I want to go. um, But it's more like the more I learn, the more I realize that it was something that would come up that would be more important to share earlier on before I go deeper with the archetypes. So before we continue to go with the magician, um, which I've spoken about a bit, I want to talk about the lectures on the archetype of initiation, masculine initiation, right? It's there's like I want to um, like I realize watching back um, through the videos, from when I started talking about the archetypes and when I started talking about initiation, um, and how you know we pretty much are all um, unconsciously initiated, and we're pretty much all acting out in some form or another with our unconscious pathological infantile grandiosity. All right, now it's just a whole bunch of jargon to say we're acting out in our immature personality due to lack of initiation. Um, so I want to kind of circle back and go over the structure of the psyche, right? Even though I've barely I've like done close to 100 hours of lectures now, and um, about halfway through the book collection, um, there's still it's still like what I'm still probably just getting out of the introductory phase. So I'll just go a bit slow. I won't go too I won't try and reach out far to the edges of my understanding, if that makes sense. I never really went into the archetypal self, right? Which is I spoke about the whole method of the Jungian psychology and the method that these professors carry forward, all right? Specifically, Edward Edinger, who is not just the Jungian. He's like it's Carl Jung's like biggest. It's his successor. He's the one that founded the institutes, right? I think the first institute was in New York, for this method, all right, for this psychological theory. So he's the one that wrote most of the books on this method, and he goes into, the structure, the actual physical anatomy, you could say, of the psyche. It's like all these professors and these head of schools, they have their own way of articulating the objective psyche, right? With Freud, I mean, they were onto something. I mean, you look at these like early 20th century scientists. It's so fascinating and interesting when you read their research, and you're reading like how they were on it, like they knew. It's hard to imagine, like, what they were able to research back then. 100 years ago, it's like all they had was books and like imagination, really, and they would just put their imagination into practice and see how consistent they could be with their method, right? So Freud called it, in his language, the id. In German, I'm pretty sure it was. But in English, in psychology, it's known as the it. It's the objective unconscious, right? The objective psyche. This is what I never really emphasized. I just kind of was too excited about the archetypes, and I earlier in the channel, I just felt the need to really explain why you might be, like, I just found it so beneficial to me, learning about the archetypes. It really changed everything, I mean, nothing really changes in your life until you're subconsciously, truly believe. Like, let's say prayer, for example, you like, nothing's going to really change, even if you're questioning, or even if you're not sure culturally, is this like more culturally taught, like actually how to pray in your religion. Nothing really changes until your subconscious recognizes a different truth. That's when your physical behavior actually starts to change, right? Same with everything, gym, fitness, diet, working. So for me, I could see that learning about the archetypes, it really shifted my understanding, right? So I just found it very beneficial. That's why I wanted to go straight into them, but I probably shouldn't have. I should have spoken more about the archetypal self, right? The objective part in your psyche that manifests into your personality through one of the 4 initiations, right? And like I spoke about earlier in the channel, one of the first of the 4 being the magician for most males, right? Which is the archetype of initiation, right? That's the magus. Now, this is the thing, right? Like, I haven't emphasized enough on how big this thing is in your subconscious. The way Edinger kind of illustrates the energy or the the imagery of what this thing is in your mind, it's through a lot of like mythology and legend. He wrote a whole commentary on, Ahab and Moby Dick. He wrote, about like the medieval, like mythological sea monsters, the Leviathan, the Hydra. Like it's all about, it's the story of like the man, right? The ego setting out to sail to attempt to kind of tame or slay the beast, the dragon, right? So in most of Jungian psychology, this is what I love. Like they actually go less anthropomorphic and ambiguous, and they actually try and put a image to this thing in your psyche, right? You cannot get an idea of how big this thing is, right? Like it's like an illusion. You don't know. I mean, you're looking for a size. You're looking for like, okay, like Ahab on his ship. You're kind of expecting it to be big, but you're not expecting it to come up and eat the whole ship. You know what I mean? Like Jonah. Think of Jonah, right? He woke up shocked, realizing that, he was in the belly of the beast. And you could see in the story how quickly he was humbled. He was just humbled. He was like, if you just imagine like waking up and he's like, okay, I thought it was like this big, from there to there, but it's like I woke up like I'm inside of it. I'm inside the belly, and it's like, oh, that's how big. Like you could never, ever, ever, ever prepare for it. You won't ever prepare for it. It's in your subconscious, right? It's like it comes in from behind your eyeballs. Think about it. It's impossible to ever, ever see it coming, right? It's big, and it's assigned to your ego, to your personality, right? It is part of your psychology, your human psyche. It's part of your human brain. It's part of it, but it's not human. It has effect on your consciousness, right? But it's separate from your ego. It's not personal, right? It's not personal to your ego. It's separate. This is the archetypal self. It's not human. It's much older than human. It's pre-human, right? It is alive. It's in your unconscious. You're not conscious to it. And this is the thing. It's smart beyond your comprehension of what smart and intelligence is. It's unexplainably intelligent and cunning and intuitive. This thing, it's in your mind, right? It's so smart. It knows how to control. It knows how to manifest itself into the world through your personality without you knowing, without you being conscious that it's calling the shots. Right? It's not the shadow, it's not your shadow. Your shadow is more your shadow is more person. So your shadow is your potential archetypal self that you haven't manifested into yet, right? So I don't know, one day I'll probably be one of these whiteboard bozos and just try and draw it out, right? Their structure, because I'm still learning. I have a good understanding, but I haven't mastered it, right? I want to start drawing it out once I master how the structure looks like off by heart, right? But imagine like there is a center in your subconscious, right? And there's a war in your mind to whoever controls this center, right, manifests into the world. Your archetypal self is in control at birth, right, when you're born. And then as a kid, you're pretty much behaving completely unconsciously. You're behaving purely off instinct and intuition, right? You're unconscious. Like, this is the thing, right? This archetype, or this thing in you, right? It's your connection to the divine, right? So when you're acting out completely in this archetype as a kid, you're almost like this mini archetypal self, right? Before consciousness kind of sets in. I'm talking like a toddler, right? Like 4 to 5 to 6 years old. As you begin to become conscious and you begin to develop a personality and an ego, this thing kind of, it doesn't go away. It never ever goes away, right? You cannot slay it. It just loses its power out of the center, right? And your ego starts to come into the center, but it never goes away, right? It wants to come back into control, right? So it'll start to manipulate and control your ego and consciousness so that you act out in a way where it can manifest into the world, right? That's its objective. It's not human, it's not limited. It wants everything and anything. It wants it all, It wants all of your potentials. Everything. It is huge. And I mean, you talk about like primal. This thing is primitive. It is pre-human. It is there's a reptile in your subconscious that's pre-human. It is a cold-blooded reptile, and it is 1,000 times more intelligent than you can ever be. It knows how to manifest itself into reality, into the world. It's had a lot of practice where you haven't. And it wants to. The thing is, it does not care about your human problems. It doesn't care about your human problems. It doesn't understand them. All it knows is survival. And it wants to survive by telling your ego to get the fuck out of the way and let me manifest through your consciousness, right? You, as the human, have control over your actions, right? To a certain extent. If you're unconscious, you really don't. So, if you trust this research, right, and you trust this theory, then at least, give it a fair chance to practice. All right, you sit and you meditate and you acknowledge, okay, there is this it, right? Like Freud called it the id. There is the id in my subconscious that does not understand my human boundaries, my human limitations. It is the driver of all of my compulsion, my addiction. This is the driver of all addiction, right? This is the driver of all compulsion, because if you listen to their methods, Ettinger, and you read my teacher, Robert Moore, sorry, I'm just pulling it in the books, that's just the one thing they make so clear. It does not care about your human limitation. If it is in control, then it's done so without you knowing. You don't know it's calling the shots. That's the point. That's how subtle, sneaky it is, right? That's why it's nature. It has a reptilian serpent nature. That's why the Jungians call it the dragon. It cannot be slayed, but it can be trained. And it can be trained and forced into recognizing your human self, your little s self, right? Which is your ego consciousness, all right? This thing is the archetypal self, big S self. However it manifests, right, through the king, the lover, the magician, or the warrior, it will have the same goals: to manifest completely into the world, and to take over, and to colonize your entire personality. So, when I spoke about, the archetype of initiation, it's important to understand how long human beings have understood the necessity for our initiation, right? It's tribalism, which is 99.9% of our human history, right? If you can recognize and you can become conscious of where you're transferring your, or where you're See, the initiation process was a rite of passage, right? In most cultures, there would be like a rite of passage, scarification on the body. A lot of cultures, East and West, they would go through, like after a rite of passage, even like knock out a tooth, break a bone, some kind of marking, some kind of physical initiation, right? This was all projected into the world, right? Their subconscious understanding for a need of initiation was projected. So you have to become aware of not like, am I projecting? Am I transferring my need for initiation onto someone else that can carry that need, so that you won't have to carry the responsibility into becoming an initiated personality, right? Into maturity. So the thing is that, see, the dragon in your psyche, right? Your archetypal self wants to come in. It wants to be initiated into the world, right? Through whatever archetype that you're currently acting out in. And if you ignore it, it doesn't go away ever. It will never go away. It's eternal. It'll outlive you and the rest of your generation, right? It's your grandiosity, which you're subconsciously, if you're subconsciously too scared to carry, which most of us are, then you will run away from that initiation, right? I'll go in much further with the transference of that archetypal projection, right? I'll go into a lot of that, right, in my next video. It's called I spoke a little bit about it. It's the idealizing transference. Subconsciously you know that you're the one that should be carrying this archetypal personality, right? And if you were never initiated and you never had that rite of passage through your tribe, which is your family, then your ego your consciousness does not see the necessity or understand the necessity ever to be initiated and to go through rite of passage, right, through maturation to maturity. So you'll repress your archetypal self in order that it stays at bay, right? But that's not what happens, right? As you grow, as you get older, it starts sending you more and more signs. The way Robert Moore explains it in the lectures, it's the best. He's like, you keep ignoring this thing, and it starts to send. Look, it's not gonna completely hijack your personality and your ego, and as soon as you become aware and you decide to ignore it, it's not just gonna, you're not gonna explode into like a psychopathic rage, right? Not yet. It'll send little signals. He calls them packages, delivery packages from the subconscious, right, to your ego, right? Maybe through little manic episodes, or little rage fits or tantrums, or like whatever little acting out thing that you quickly kind of snap out of, and you're like, what the hell, that wasn't me, you know? Think of like road rage, or like you know, like an addiction, a secret addiction that you have, you know, and then you kind of snap out of it, and you're like, you know, you get that clarity, and you're like, what am I doing? What the fuck? This isn't me, you know? And it starts to send more and more delivery packages, and then it'll get frustrated. This thing, you know, like Robert Moore says, it does not have endless patience. It'll get frustrated with you, and if you piss it off, it'll start to play around. It has power in your subconscious, right? It has space to move. It has been given the power to occupy. It's your connected counterpart, right? It'll start to send packages that will explode in your face. I mean, it'll start sending you explosive delivery packages from the subconscious to your ego, and you'll open them up and they'll explode in your face. I mean, think about it. If you're in your shadow magician, I mean, you talk about magician, right? You talk about trickster. This thing will start sending you explosive delivery packages to remind you that it hasn't gone away, no matter how much you ignore it. And if you piss it off, it will abuse your consciousness. You cannot piss it off. You cannot suppress it and abuse it. But you can communicate with it your humanity and your limitations, right? You don't force it. You have to, I mean, if you can, you try and befriend it. And you try and cooperate. And you try to get it to cooperate. It wants full control, remember. It doesn't know sharing. It wants to fucking explode into the world and act out. And then just manifest and take everything until you come crashing down in a ball of raging, grandiose fire, right? Self-destruction. I mean, that's the point here. The point is, this thing can I mean, if you ignore it enough, it'll kill you. It will kill you. You know? Later on, I guess I'll go into more like how it ends up destroying the personality and the ego through either a inflationary grandiosity or a deflationary grandiosity, a depressed grandiosity. Yeah, like I always say, it'll get more clearer, you know, as I as I progress. I know I'm going in circles. It's like I start off basic and then I go kind of deep and confusing. And then I'll start on a new topic, it feels like. Right when I started to become clear and I guess better, more articulate in the previous topic, and I'll kind of jump, but now I'm not jumping forward, I'm jumping back to talk about, what this archetypal self is, right? Before I talk about how it manifests into one of the four archetypes, right? It is objective. It itself is an archetype, right? Itself is it's a energy, and it just manifests through the different archetypes, but it's the same energy, if that makes sense. And yeah, it is primitive. This thing is hyper intelligent. It understands its environment. It understands its place in its current environment. It understands threats that your ego cannot see. It understands your human desire, but it doesn't recognize the necessity. It doesn't recognize the problem. If this thing doesn't recognize the limitation, and it manifests through your lover, it doesn't know the difference. It sees the girl. You get the picture. Like this is the serial, grapist. This is the chronic terminal drug addict, dopamine addict. This is the sadistic torturer, Jeez, 40 minutes. Yeah, we'll leave it there. I'll go into it more next video. Talk more about initiation and what happens to your ego and personality when you're acting out in full grandiosity, right? Yeah. I'll see you in the next one.